Most painting businesses lose a lot of money because they overlook these 5 critical steps. And after I scaled my own painting business to $72,000 a month, I figured out why most painting businesses keep missing out on painting projects. So in this video, I'll show you the 5 critical steps any painting business can use to grow fast. But to start, let me show you the first step that holds most painting businesses back from making more money. All right, and it's so obvious, but imagine for a second that you're giving a quote to a homeowner and he says, you know, everything sounds good, but I'm gonna have to get other quotes because it's too expensive. What do you actually do in that situation? You're probably wondering. Well, my best advice is what I did after someone said that, after I just gave them a 7,000 quote. So instead of just giving up, I remember a quote by Wayne that said, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So I decided to take a shot and find out why they couldn't afford to pay me. Right? So I can try to find a solution. And this actually got me more jobs because I could actually help the homeowner resolve his financial issue. And I realized that in order for you to get what you want, you have to give others first what they want. But what did I actually do so you can do this yourself? Well, let me actually show you. All right, so step 1, you want to figure out why they cannot pay you. All right, so that's the first step. Why can they not afford you? What do they even mean by that? So asking that question uncovers why they cannot afford you, all right? So you wanna ask a question kind of like this. When you say it's too expensive, how so you mean? This helps you find out a little bit more about what they even mean, because different people, when they say it's too expensive, it's different. Maybe they just need a couple thousands more. Maybe they're way off. You never know until you ask. Or if you see that their resistance is up and they're pushing you away, I like to ask something like, okay, so I understand and I can appreciate that money is a concern, but putting money aside for a second, if you did have the funds, is this something you would do, right? Why would you want to do that? It's very important. You want to isolate the money, take the money away and see if there's any concerns before the money, because you cannot tackle that objection if their concern is something with the service, right? Maybe they didn't like what you said about your process. You never know until you isolate the money, put that aside, and you uncover if there's any concerns. And if it is something, then you tackle the objection by offering a solution. So let me actually give you an example. Let's say they say something like, yeah, this is something I would do, but I don't have $7,000 for the project. You can then tackle by asking, okay, so I understand, I guess, what are some ways you can actually get the funding or the money so you can actually get a beautiful painted home? Now you make them think about solutions themselves on how they can actually get the money, because they already admitted that everything sounds good. It's just getting that funding that's the problem. So with this question, they open themselves up to the possibility of finding that funding. Now, step 2 to actually solving this is, after you realize whether it's a money or an actual concern, you want to handle that objection. And the way that you're gonna be doing this is by telling stories. So what do I actually mean by this? If someone is not willing to paint their house, they see that it's too expensive. It's because they're focused on the money, the investment. But they have a reason why they want to paint their home. They want to get that beautiful house. Isn't that right? And so one way that I like to handle objections is, let's say someone is just really the money, they don't want to pay, nothing concerns them about the service. Then I can say something along the lines, okay, Mr. John, can I make a suggestion? Sure, they're gonna say, right? No, nobody's gonna be against that. Yeah, so usually, we're born in this life, and as you were born, you've been told that you shouldn't get this, you shouldn't buy that, you don't deserve this, but as I started to grow up more, I started to realize that there's actually moments in which you start to realize that you actually do deserve what you want. And so let me ask you this, Mr. John, are you gonna, I guess, settle for not having what you actually want, which is a beautiful home? Or do you feel like it might be time to actually get that beautiful house that's gonna last you for years? And plus, you're gonna be living in this house for how many years did you said? And they might say like, oh, like probably a long time. Yeah, so you're gonna be living here for a long time. I guess, isn't it time for you to actually, I guess, give yourself that treat, that desire that you actually deserve? Do you see how that works? So you give them like a new perspective. So the reason they're not moving forward and the reason we want to tell stories is because usually stories open up a new belief. So you're breaking the old belief. I don't deserve a beautiful home, in this case for them, you're breaking that belief that, eventually they're gonna die, in that, they have been restricting themselves so many years of not getting what they wanted, because they probably have. Maybe they wanted to buy a car. Maybe they wanted to buy a bigger house. Maybe they wanted to move somewhere else, but they never did it because of financial issues. And you putting that in perspective, it makes them realize, and you're creating an enemy. That past belief that they don't deserve it is now the enemy. And now you asking them, don't you think like it's time for you to actually get that treat, like the thing that you actually deserve? That puts them in a new perspective, because if they say, no, I don't deserve it, nobody's actually going to say that. Do you see how that works? So stories, if you have different stories, it breaks the old beliefs and it puts new ones, so they actually move forward. We actually doing the painting project. Now, step 3, and this one is the most important one, and most people don't like this one right here, but you want to ask again. All right. So what do I actually mean? When you're asking again, it just simply means that you just want to ask for the sale again. No matter how many times they tell you no, 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 right? You just want to come back. Okay, so what do you mean by that? Okay, can I offer you a new perspective? You tell a story. My dog, it could be anything. Could be something that you think that might actually help them break that old belief and replace it with a new belief. Once you feel you did this right, you can just ask for the sale again. You can just say, so would it make sense? So let's suppose we come back to where I told you the story, that your whole life you've been neglecting yourself from having desires. You've always been told you don't deserve this. Don't you feel like it's time for you to actually give yourself that treat, give yourself the thing that you deserve? And they say, yeah, I get it. Yeah, so would it make sense for you to actually move forward with the $500 deposit, put you in a calendar? Worst case, we refund you the deposit if you feel like you didn't deserve, after all, the beautiful home. Would that be fair enough to do? You see how that works? You're basically you're asking again for the sale in a new way. You're letting him know, hey man, if you change your mind and you realize that you actually didn't deserve that, I can just refund your deposit, we'll take you off and done. But most people will be like, yeah, you know what? Okay, fine, let's do it. But this is the hardest part, and the reason why I say this, and it's not your fault, but everybody has said that you shouldn't ask for the sale again because you might disturb the homeowner, they're gonna get angry. But that's not necessarily true, because they contacted you, they reach out to you, and so there's some pain. There's really pain behind staying the same. So if you don't help them paint their house, they're gonna stay stuck with the same old color, or maybe they don't like the way their house looks. All right, so painting might not be as special. We might not see it as special because we paint so many houses that we think, yeah, it's just a painting project. But you're talking to a homeowner who probably hasn't painted in 10 years, who probably has been thinking about painting for the past 5 years, and until now they actually took the commitment, let's actually find out how much it costs. It's an unfulfilled desire, and if you can manage for them to resolve that and actually invest so they can get that unfulfilled desire and they have it, you're just not helping someone get a beautiful home. You're actually helping someone feel more happy, have their family in a better environment. Well, this was just the beginning on how to actually make someone find a way to get the funding if they say they cannot afford it. But what happens if they need to go talk about it with their partner before actually making a decision? You probably have heard this a lot. So let's say John now says, okay, I guess I can use my credit card to pay for the project, but I first need to talk to my wife before I actually commit to doing anything. So, okay, so let's actually break down how you will handle this step by step. So in this example, instead of just letting him go by saying, yeah, sure, go talk to your spouse and you can get back to me, or saying, do you need your wife's approval for you to do this? Because none of them actually work, and you probably heard this a lot, those objection handling techniques. What you actually want to do, you want to find out a little bit more, like I showed you in that framework. So you can ask something like this instead. Okay, sure, man, I understand. Now, John, how does your wife actually feel about the way your home looks right now? Now, John has to think about how his wife actually feels, because he probably never considered that. So he might say, well, she said that we need to paint our home. So next, you can ask something like, okay, and what happens if you go to your wife and she says that you shouldn't paint the house? It's like, what will happen then? And this question will reveal how serious he is about actually moving forward. If he says, no, well, we still need to paint, then you can ask for the sale, because he's going to paint regardless of what the wife says. But what happens if, even if it makes sense for him to move forward, he still has some resistance and doesn't want to commit? This is still going to happen, because if they're going to paint, even if the wife says that they shouldn't do it, You know, there's always that fear when you buy something. It's called, I forgot the name, but you know, nobody likes to lose money, and you feel in a way that you're losing money. And so everybody's gonna have some resistance when it comes to actually buying, especially painting projects. If it costs $5,000, $8,000, that's quite some investment for some homeowners, right? Well, I actually figured this out accidentally when I was giving a quote to an old lady. So she wanted me to paint her small trailer. It was a small trailer home, but she was very hesitant to do it, whether or not to do it, because she didn't have a lot of money. But after asking her how she could find the funding, she called one of her sons who was willing to pay the rest off for her. Yet she was still very hesitant because she didn't want to waste her son's money, right? Nobody wants to do that. So I showed some sympathy, and I was about to leave when out of nowhere, she stood up and she looked at my eyes and said, "Okay, Carlos, let's do it." And she agreed to do the project with me. And I realized that people need to feel understood if you want them to do anything with you. So let's break down how you can apply this step by step. So the first thing you have to do, you have to handle the previous concerns like talking to the partner and figure out how to get the money. That's the first thing. Now, once you have done that and they still hesitate, it means they have fear. So you want to show sympathy and put yourself in their shoes. All they're trying to do is make the right choice because nobody likes to make mistakes. So I will remove that fear by asking with sympathy something like this. Okay, I understand you want to make the right choice. So I have to ask you, do you feel like this could be the right answer for you? If they say yes, immediately interrupt them and ask, why do you feel like it though? The reason you interrupt is because if you don't, they're just gonna start talking about their uncle, their family, and go off topic. And instead, you want to keep them focused on why are you the right choice for them. And after they tell you that you are, they might say something like, well, you know, because of X, Y, and Z, I feel like you guys would do exactly what I'm looking for. Something along the lines like that. Next, you can actually go straight up for the sale. Same framework. You just say something along, okay, so would it make sense for you to move forward so you can actually get a beautiful home since you said that we could actually deliver on what you're looking for? And that's how you close the painting project. But even if you do this, there's still one more critical step that if you miss, nothing would have mattered. All right, so let's imagine for a second, John still doesn't want to move forward because he thinks it's not the right timing right now. All right, so let's break down how you can deal with this step by step. So step one, you want to dig deeper on what he means. So same thing, you want to ask. When you say it's not the right timing, can you give me an example? Let's find out what he means. So let's pretend he says something like, well, we were planning on doing it 3 months from now, not right now. So afterwards, what you can do is add some urgency. So what do I mean by this? You want them to take action. So you say something along the lines, okay, I understand, John. Now we are booking for months in advance. So I'm afraid that we might book slots 3 months from now. So if you think it's appropriate, we can actually save your spot in 3 months with the $500 refundable deposit. And if for some reason you want to cancel, we just refund that deposit. Would that be appropriate? And that's it. You're adding urgency because you're letting him know, hey, we're gonna book out in 3 months from now. And someone is gonna take your spot. Let's just put you in our schedule with that $500 refundable deposit. It's important that you say refundable because they feel like you're removing that risk. In worst case, if you decide to cancel 3 months from now, we just take you off. Would that be appropriate? Most homeowners say yes, right? Because you're making them an offer that seems so obvious and most of them are not gonna cancel. All the time that I have used this, I only got one refund from one homeowner, and it was a really unlucky situation because she was doing flooring first, and the flooring guy was a really like cheap guy, and he said, hey, are you gonna do the painting? And she said, yeah, I already have someone who's gonna do that. Or I can just do it for $2,000, you know, with paint and everything. And I was charging her $8,000. And so she was like, oh, you sure? And she just asked for that deposit back. It was just really unfortunate situation, but she was already committed to doing it with us. So that's what you want to do. As long as someone gives you a small deposit, they already committed. They usually don't ask it back. They already make it up in their mind. I gave him that deposit because I'm actually going to move forward with that. And that's how you actually close all these objections. But this actually brings me to the next big problem. And I beg you that you need to make sure this is set up correctly. So this actually happened to me when I was giving a quote to a homeowner. I did this whole process. And finally, the guy said, all right, Carlos, let me pay with my credit card. So I carry with me like a small credit card, like a processor that can take credit cards, debit cards, all type of payments. But this time I forgot it. And I told the guys, do you have any change? Because I forgot to bring my payment processor. And he said, no, I don't do checks, unfortunately. But you can come back another day and collect that 500 deposit. And we scheduled the next day for me to come and get that deposit. But tomorrow came and he canceled the project. And I learned my lesson. And since then, I always make sure to carry a payment processor, always carry it. But why did this actually happen? The reason is simple. I gave him time to think about his decision. And what usually happens is that fear comes in and takes over. But if I would have collected that 500 deposit, he would have felt like there was one more thing off his table and just, I already hired a painter. So always carry a payment processor. And the thing is, even though now you know how to make someone act when they don't have the money, when they need to go talk to their partner, when they feel fear, and finally how to go about actually making them move forward when they think the timing is not right, there's one more thing that you need to learn, because if you don't have any leads, then this won't matter for you, right? This is just noise. So watch this video next where I'll show you how you can run paid ads for painters in 8 minutes so you can start growing your painting business. So take a look at that. My name is Carlos. Take care.